who had some strong words for the man who killed OSU student Reagan Tokes.
Reagan Tokes was a young woman full of promise, hope, and kindness.
He was convicted on all counts in the rape and murder of Reagan Tokes, and now the jury has to decide his fate, if he will face life in prison or if he'll be put to death.
Born and raised in Ohio, she grew up in a close family who loved her deeply and supported her dreams.
We know in our hearts this is what Reagan would want us to do, and we know it is the right thing to do to honor her memory best.
Reagan had a bright smile that could light up a room, and she carried herself with a warmth that made people feel safe and welcomed. Friends often described her as thoughtful, strong, and caring. She had goals for her future and a drive to achieve them. At the time of her death, Reagan was just 21 years old and a senior at Ohio State University. She was studying psychology, a field she felt passionate about, because she wanted to help people and make a difference in their lives. Reagan balanced her studies with part-time work at a local restaurant, showing her independence and determination. Her coworkers admired her for her positive spirit, her discipline, and her ability to stay strong even when life was busy and stressful. Those who knew Reagan remember her love for family gatherings, laughter with friends, and her strong sense of responsibility. She had her whole life ahead of her, with dreams of building a career, forming a family, and creating a future filled with love and success. Reagan's story began with hope and inspiration, making the tragedy that followed all the more heartbreaking. A night of disappearance, on the evening of February 8, 2017, Reagan Tokes finished her shift at a restaurant in Columbus, Ohio. It was a normal night for her, nothing unusual or alarming at first. She closed up the place and prepared to drive home, planning to rest and continue her busy schedule as a student and worker the next day. Reagan walked to her car, parked just a short distance away, unaware that danger was waiting for her. The streets were quiet, and she had no idea she was being watched. Her life, filled with ambition and dreams, was about to take a tragic turn in a matter of moments. As she sat behind the wheel, ready to leave, she was suddenly forced into a terrifying situation that no one could have predicted. Reagan had no way of knowing this would be the last time her friends and family would see her alive. Hours later, people close to her began to worry when she did not come home. Calls went unanswered, and messages received no reply. This was not like Reagan, who was always responsible and quick to reassure her loved ones. The night that started as an ordinary shift ended in silence, fear, and the beginning of a heartbreaking mystery. Her disappearance left her family and friends filled with dread, setting off a desperate search for answers. The kidnapping. As Reagan Tokes left her workplace and sat in her car, she was suddenly confronted by Brian Golsby, a man with a violent past. He forced his way into her vehicle and took control of the situation in an instant. Reagan was terrified but powerless against him. She had no weapon, no chance to escape, and no way to call for help. In those moments, her independence and freedom were stripped away as she was held against her will. Golsby had recently been released from prison and was wearing a GPS ankle monitor. Yet that did not stop him from stalking and targeting Reagan. He made her drive to an ATM, where he demanded she withdraw money for him. Every step of the way, Reagan complied, likely hoping that if she cooperated, he might spare her life. The fear she must have felt is unimaginable, knowing her future was slipping away in the hands of someone so dangerous. From the ATM, she was driven to a nearby park. The nightmare continued as Reagan's kidnapping turned into something darker and more violent. She was trapped, alone with her attacker, and the moments that followed would seal her tragic fate. The kidnapping was not just a crime of opportunity. It was the cruel act of a man who saw no value in the precious life he had stolen. The crime scene the morning after Reagan vanished. Police were called to Scioto Grove Metro Park, a quiet area in Grove City, Ohio. What they discovered there ended the search in the most heartbreaking way. Reagan's body was found, and with it came the grim reality of what she had endured. The park, usually a place of peace and family walks, had become the scene of a violent crime that shocked the entire community. Investigators carefully examined the area, piecing together the final hours of her life. Evidence showed she had been assaulted and then shot, her life taken far too soon by the man who had kidnapped her. For the officers on scene, it was not just another case. It was a young woman's stolen future, and the weight of that truth could be felt by everyone present. The crime scene was marked with silence, broken only by the work of detectives gathering clues. Every detail mattered, from tire marks to footprints, as they tried to uncover how the events had unfolded. The location itself added to the tragedy. A public park turned into the final resting place of a young student who had done nothing wrong. The discovery not only ended hope for Reagan's safe return, but also ignited a demand for justice that would carry through the investigation and trial. The killer, the man responsible for Reagan Tokes' murder, was Brian Golsby, a name that soon became linked with cruelty and violence. At the time of the crime, he was 29 years old and had a long criminal history. Golsby had already spent years in prison for kidnapping and robbery, crimes that showed a clear pattern of aggression. Despite his background, he had been released just months before Reagan's death, fitted with a GPS ankle monitor that was supposed to track his movements. That device, meant to protect the public, did not stop him from committing yet another horrific act. Investigators soon learned that Golsby had been lurking around the area, waiting for a victim. Reagan, alone after work and vulnerable in the parking lot, became his target. His actions that night revealed not only his disregard for human life, but also his determination to take what he wanted without fear of consequences. The brutality of his crime shook even seasoned detectives. Golsby's past painted the picture of a man unwilling to change. His release back into society was later questioned heavily, with many asking how someone so dangerous could walk free. To those who knew Reagan, it was unbearable to realize that her promising life had been cut short by a man whose history made the tragedy seem preventable. The killer's name became a symbol of failure in the system, and a reminder of the risk he posed to innocent lives. The arrest after Reagan's body was discovered, investigators quickly began tracing every detail of her final hours. Surveillance footage and ATM records gave them a clear path, pointing directly to Brian Golsby. The GPS ankle monitor he was wearing became undeniable evidence, showing his movements lined up perfectly with Reagan's disappearance and murder. This technology, intended to track him, instead sealed his connection to the crime. Police moved fast to bring him into custody. When Golsby was arrested, the community felt a wave of both relief and anger. Relief that the man responsible was caught and could no longer harm anyone else, but anger because his release from prison had allowed this tragedy to happen at all. Investigators pressed him with questions, uncovering details of that night and building a case that could not be denied. The arrest was not just about catching one man, it was about exposing cracks in the system that had failed to protect an innocent woman. Reagan's family, while shattered by grief, could at least know that justice had a chance to be served. The man who had stolen their daughter, sister, and friend was behind bars, facing the weight of the law for the horror he created. Justice in court. When Brian Golsby stood trial, the courtroom became the stage where every detail of Reagan Tokes' final night was revealed. Prosecutors presented evidence that left no room for doubt: surveillance footage, ATM withdrawals, and most of all, the GPS data from his ankle monitor, which tracked his every move. Witnesses testified about Reagan's character, her kindness, and her bright future, reminding the jury of the life stolen by his violence. The defense attempted to shift blame, suggesting outside factors or questioning Golsby's intent, but the evidence was overwhelming. Each piece of proof painted a picture of a man who deliberately kidnapped, assaulted, robbed, and murdered an innocent young woman. For Reagan's family, sitting through the details was excruciating, yet they remained present to honor her, and to see justice carried out. Lasting impact, the murder of Reagan Tokes did not just end the life of a bright young woman. It changed laws, communities, and families across Ohio. Her tragic story revealed serious failures in the justice system, especially the lack of proper monitoring for violent offenders. In the aftermath, lawmakers pushed for reforms, leading to the Reagan Tokes Act, which gave Ohio stronger sentencing guidelines and better supervision of dangerous criminals. Her name became tied to change, ensuring her loss would not be in vain. For her family, friends, and classmates, the impact was deeply personal. They mourned not only the loss of Reagan, but also the future she never had the chance to build. Vigils were held in her honor, with people lighting candles and sharing memories of her kindness and determination. Her story touched many who had never met her, reminding everyone how fragile life is and how quickly it can be taken away. The park where she was found, once seen as only a crime scene, later became a place of remembrance. Each year, people gathered to honor her life and raise awareness about safety and justice. Reagan's legacy lives on in the laws that bear her name, in the voices calling for protection of others, and in the memories of a young woman whose light continues to shine despite the darkness that ended her life.